As we stand on the brink of an artificial intelligence-driven revolution, we are witnessing a shift in the world of software, the declining cost to create products, services, and businesses. So why does this matter to you? Let's break it all down for you right now on UBS Trending. Hi, everyone, and welcome to UBS Trending. I'm Anthony Pastore. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sitting here in the studio with Ankur Crawford from our friends over at Alger. Ankur, wonderful to have you here in the studio, and thank you for joining us for the first time. Hopefully not the last time.
Oh, of course not.
We were chatting a lot before this because I am also very, very interested and constantly reading about artificial intelligence and AI. We've had conversations with others, Dan Chung from your firm coming in here talking about ChatGPT and all of the revolutions that are happening in the space. And something that you write about in a recent white paper, you talk about how 5, 10, 20 years of transformation in AI, the advent has the potential to create essentially a brand new model in the technological revolution, a new economy. Tell us what you are looking at when you talk about these things.
I think we're entering a new paradigm where innovation is only limited by compute, which is a fascinating thing to be happening, because when compute is your limitation, compute becomes exponentially better over time. Not only can compute learn from its mistakes and not repeat its mistakes, it also gets faster and faster as we start to innovate on the chips or on the technology. So, you know, I do think that it has put us into a brand new paradigm. We have referred to it as a fourth industrial revolution, which, I mean, interestingly enough, you know, I studied actually the Industrial Revolution relatively late in my life, studying it with my daughter, who was working on this project for school.
Right. And
it has a lot of similarities as what the steam engine and what is happening today. So we are in the midst of it, in the very, very early stages of it. It is incredibly exciting as an investor because, you know, at this point, the market can be significantly larger than the market estimates right now.
In this phase that we're in, we're already seeing jobs become new job creation. But obviously people are thinking, well, how can I get into this workforce? I paint a picture of what the new revolution is going to look like. You compared it to the Industrial Revolution. Where did this kind of framework come from, where you look at these different phases of the development and the advent of where we're going with AI?
You know, what is on that diagram is actually very much how we think about investing at Alger. It is, you know, we think about markets that can be potentially very large that are going to ride up this disruptive curve and the disruption of the S curve. And so we are constantly looking for markets and companies that exhibit this kind of behavior. What is interesting about AI at this moment in time is that we are so early on and rapidly going up the S curve. So, you know, where we end up is really difficult to say,
right,
because this market is not quantifiable at this point. You know, you can think about, you know, the productivity increases that AI will garner. You can think about the OpEx that people or companies will save by using AI. You can think about the new markets that are going to be created that we didn't even know we needed, but we will desperately need in 10 years.
We are seeing, and this is done in an MIT study that you wrote about in your white paper as well, is that when you're actually using the technology that exists today, which we generally say ChatGPT for the generative AI models, that people who are using it were able to complete their tasks 37% faster, and we're also seeing it's costing less money to develop. So time is shorter, funds to output to create a new project or software are also less. So there's a lot of advantages here.
Oh, the advantages are mind-blowing. And mind you, this is version, you know, this is ChatGPT 4. It came out, I mean, it was publicized November
2022, yes.
Right?
Think about how far it's come in just less than a year and a half.
A year and a half. And so what will the next year and a half bring in all of these LLMs.
And even more of the research that's going into this from analysts on Wall Street and others are seeing that return on investment is potentially greater than maybe what they even were expecting in November of 2022 when ChatGPT kind of first landed. But Ankur, let me sort of take it back down to earth, like human earth, as we two human beings sit here at this table, surrounded by technology, but not necessarily AI. Well, that's not true. AI is on our phones already, and maybe people don't even realize that. But there's, of course, the other side where there's fear about what AI could become as a detriment to human beings or society, you name it. There's all kinds of movies and TV shows that have shown, the Terminator effect, right? Or the robots literally taking over. But we here see upside at UBS. You see the upside here. Set that sort of tone for us. What's the upside here, and why are these risks maybe at this point in the story anyway not really valid?
Any technological innovation has, two sides of the story. And so in terms of the fear factor, and will it take my job? I think if you study any kind of transition and any kind of industrial revolution, there's always been, transitions that occur over 1 to 1.5 generations. You went from an agrarian society to, an industrialized society. That transition took about 30 to 60 years, which is about 2 generations,
right,
before it was fully adopted. I believe that this time, given the innovation and how quickly things are moving, our transition to a kind of whatever this new economy is going to look like is going to be much faster. And in part, it's because we as humans can also transition to the new economy faster than the farmers could go into an industrial society.
If you think about the late 1800s, farming was the biggest, probably the biggest thing that people did to make money in this country. And then they were opening up these factories. So these people who were working in these factories, they needed to be trained before they can get on the floor of the factory to work the machinery, as you pointed out. And I'm sure there was fear back then as well about how are we going to evolve into this new era of machines and steam engines. And it got us into, the Industrial Revolution, which changed the face of society globally. So people have to just understand that it's just another evolution. It's exponentially faster and growing at a different rate, but it's still essentially the same idea of growing as a society. We just need to do it together.
And you know what I think is really interesting about the Industrial Revolution, which isn't very much talked about in this Industrial Revolution, is that England, during that period of time, was the first to deploy the steam engine inside its country. And the reason they were first to deploy is because the cost of labor in England was significantly higher than in China and India. They also had the same technology. However, the cost of labor there was so much lower, and I think it was because of the plague. The Black Plague basically took off,
right.
Killed a large portion of the population. Because of that, England was able to become a huge imperialist superpower, and started spreading their wings over the next 200 years, as we saw into the mid 1900s. That's an aspect of this that is also not discussed, which I think is fascinating, because there is a very geopolitical kind of movement and benefit to adopting and harnessing the power of this technology, which is why you're seeing all of these kind of tit for tat right now on, between the different countries of, you can't have my technology and I want your technology.
That's
and
right.
Your technology.
Competition, right? I mean, this conversation, obviously, it's never ending. And clearly, as the technology is growing, so are the conversations around it. So, Ankur, thank you. I wish we had more time to sit here and talk about it. But there's some theories, there's some facts. I'm so glad you were able to come in and share some of those thoughts with us. It's really good to kind of pick your brain a little bit on the topic. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Great, thank you. And please, everybody, as you know, this is an ever-growing and ever-changing topic of discussion, so we will have more like this over the next weeks, months, years, likely. So make sure you're tuning in to our website, ubs.com/views. Lots of CIO content there as well. on this artificial intelligence revolution. Plus, you can follow everything UBS is doing on social media. Plus, you can check out our dedicated Instagram page at UBS Trending for UBS Studios content that you're not going to find anywhere else. Plus, if you have any questions about what we spoke about today, make sure you're talking to your financial advisor. Until next time, I'm Anthony Pastore. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and remember to keep your eyes on what's trending. We'll see you soon.